It's time to use that pattern paper. We can all relate to collecting tons and tons of pattern paper and promising ourselves to use them, but they're too pretty to cut, right? I have had this particular paper from Amy Tangerine for years, and I love it so much I don't want to cut it. But creating is about transformation, so I challenged myself to use more of my papers, and I'm going to show you the ways I make pattern paper cards using minimal supplies. The first set of cards are the simplest. 12 by 12 paper pads are a great resource to start with. Look for the pads that have papers like this, which have multiple cutouts with sayings or sentiments that you can trim down. Hydration break before we get into the cards. I've cut my pattern paper down to A2 sizes and cut the sentiment cards as well. I like using 12 by 12 paper versus 6 by 6 because the patterns are larger. I think the 6 by 6 patterns are too small and don't stand out as much when cut to the size of an A2 card. In this method, the pattern paper acts as a background to the sentiment, and because all the papers are from the same paper pad, you don't have to worry about color coordination. I'm currently out of double-sided tape, so I'm using glue and clear foam tape to adhere the pieces. Foam tape is a must when making these cards. Dimension is necessary in my opinion due to the card's simplicity. Adding some height adds so much interest to an otherwise humble design. Also, as a girl who loves gold, I love how the gold metallic cardstock helps the sentiment to stand out. When making these cards, you can create banners or cut the rectangular cutouts into other shapes like ovals or tags. This method helps you to create very neat cards quickly and would be helpful if you're making cards in large quantities or when you're creating sets of cards to gift to others. Using this same technique, you can switch the cutout for a more interesting focal point, such as paper flowers, a die cut, or a stamped sentiment, or even ephemera pieces. The choice is yours. The second way to use pattern paper is by looking at the papers for both color scheme and theme. One thing I love doing is translating pieces of the paper design into different cards or media. For example, when making these two cards, I use the lettering on the pattern paper to inspire the lettering on the Hooray card. Even though it is made with plain cardstock, it has a different visual aesthetic. It still looks cohesive in color scheme and theme. This way, I can create multiple cards which are connected in design. In addition, you can use different design elements from the paper and make those objects the focal point. I use my Cricut machine to cut feathers that match those on the pattern paper in this card. Here's something we shy away from a lot: using pattern paper in the foreground of our projects. Don't get me wrong, I love me some white space, but placing pattern paper in the foreground can produce a bold and unique result in your card making. I enjoy cutting shapes into the paper to allow complementary colors to peek through or create windows. Cutting a pattern paper into strips or layering leftover pieces can make beautiful cards. You can add more dimension by tearing the paper, as it adds additional texture and gives a very interesting appearance to your cards. If you want to be neater or elevate your card even more, you can use die cuts to create intricate shapes like I did in this card, where I use a stitching die. Here I'm making a quick card by simply tearing some pieces of pattern paper and adhering it to the front of the card with a stamped sentiment. I'm sorry here, the video gets a bit out of focus, but I try to still capture everything that I did. I'm using this stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. I will link it below. And I use black Versamark ink to do the stamping. Here I'm just putting some little stars to match the pattern paper onto the front of the card. So go forth and use those pattern paper packs. Subscribe and I'll see you soon.